Hi, Steve, and thank you for accepting to take this call and be in the presence of the Dynamics User Group Kenya. This is our first meetup that we have organized so that we can at least get together and see how it will go from there. And it will be a physical meetup to start with, just a small group to build the blocks. We want to make sure that at least people can meet and engage. And then from that team, we can have maybe a few leaders who can be able now to take it to the next level and see how we can be able to now do the both hybrid, that is physical and remote. So to begin with, we want to have this physical meetup. And I invited my friend Steve, Microsoft MVP, and he gladly accepted on a very short notice. So I really appreciate your sacrifice to be here with us and make this recording for the Kenyan team of Dynamics User Group.
Well, thank you very much for the invite, and thank you especially for reaching out to me and contacting me a few months ago, about your blog and your videos and your participation in the Dynamics Business Central community. And coincidentally, the week before you contacted me, the Dynamics user group asked about starting meetups in other continents outside of the US and Europe. So it was perfect timing. And I thank you very much for volunteering to host the meetup, help organize, and I'm happy to help in any way I can.
Sure. That's really great. I'm really happy with what Dynamics User Group is doing to enable people meet together, discuss the challenges, challenge each other, and skill up. The most important thing, to help people skill up in the different technologies of Dynamics that they're using. So I believe I'll start with maybe a little bit of Q&A for Steve. And I will allow you maybe to mention your profile, like who you are and what you do, basically, because there are people who will be meeting you for the first time today. They have never seen Steve Endow. I believe I'm mentioning the name correctly.
Yes, you are. Okay.
Yeah.
So a little bit about me.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Well, I currently live in Los Angeles, California. The typical kind of palm trees and sunshine and the beach. So not a bad place to live. I kind of got started in the ERP world through, in college, I had a degree in economics and accounting, kind of a random choice, long story of that, but I ended up working for Deloitte and Touche, which back in the day was one of the big 6 accounting firms. Now they're down to big 4. And I ended up doing accounting and ERP software then, and I've done it ever since. From Solomon 4 back in the day to PeopleSoft, Dynamics GP, and now Business Central SaaS is my focus. I never worked with Nav. And I've been learning Business Central SaaS for the last, 3+ years, very slowly. It's actually been a surprisingly challenging journey for me coming from the Dynamics GP world. There is so much to learn. Everything is different. Everything is new for me. So much to learn over the years. And so now I am fully invested in Dynamics 365 Business Central Online, or SaaS as it's called. And I think it's a great product. And we've, as you know, there's a great community on Twitter, online, at the conferences. So I'm happy to connect with you and expand the reach of the user group and the community to support users throughout the world.
Sure. Yeah, that's great. So you did accounting also?
Yes. Strangely, it wasn't. I had started school with an engineering focus, and that was one of the most difficult things I'd ever done in my life. And I quickly realized that was not going to be my career path. So I thought that business and accounting was relatively easy. So I had to switch majors. and here I am. It actually combined kind of a business knowledge with my personal hobby of computers, and I think it's worked out well. I would never want to be an accountant, but knowing just enough about accounting and plenty about computers has worked out fairly well for me.
Yeah, to enable the accountants to work.
Yes, I'm happy to help accountants do their job because I do not want to do their job. Yep.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you are a Microsoft most valuable personnel. So, for the people who maybe don't understand the concept of MVP, maybe what it means, could you kindly explain maybe what is a Microsoft MVP? And then how did you attain the MVP? How was the journey for you? How was that journey for you?
Sure. So the Microsoft MVP award is given to people in the Microsoft community who contribute what we would call community contributions. And so these are unpaid contributions, whether it's spending a lot of time in the community forums, answering questions, writing blogs, making videos, speaking at conferences, writing books. There are all sorts of ways that MVPs contribute to the community overall to try and help users, to help promote Microsoft products. Some people help the Microsoft team, track down bugs and they fix something on GitHub, for instance. So all sorts of ways that MVPs contribute. In my case, I responded to a lot of forum posts and started writing blogs. I don't even remember, 2013 or 2012, something like that. And after a couple years, someone nominated me. And back then things were a little different. I don't even know who nominated me. And I received the award out of the blue. I didn't know I'd been nominated. I didn't know I'd received the award. I just got an email suddenly. Things are a little more formal nowadays, so that's less common. But I was aware of it. I had talked with friends about it, but I wasn't actually trying to get it. I was just writing blogs, making some videos, presenting at conferences, and I was actually having a great time just doing all those things. So the MVP award was, a nice thank you and a nice recognition. And what I think the MVP award helps you do is it helps open conversations. And so you get to talk to other MVPs, you get invited to conversations like this, and it's really a fantastic way to interact with the community and stay in touch with people.
That's amazing. So you are just there helping people, trying to answer questions in discussion forums, and boom, somebody nominates you to become the MVP. And
I to this day, I don't actually know who nominated me or what the process was. Yeah, it just came out of the blue.
Oh. And what is the process of becoming an MVP, the current process?
So the current process is a little more formal. And so at least personally, I can share what I do. I will talk with someone who either I think would be a good candidate or who is interested in being an MVP. And I now have some recommendations as to how they should prepare for an MVP nomination. And that could be whatever contributions work for them. That could be speaking at conferences, blogs, forum posts, all the things that we mentioned. And once they have, I ask that they prepare roughly a year, 12 months of activity to show that they are active in the community, that they've invested a significant amount of time preparing for this. And also, I want to make sure that they can continue those contributions even after they're awarded. I don't want them to get awarded and then not have enough time to continue. So a full year of contributions, and then I'll work with them for anywhere from 2 months to 6 months to prepare for the nomination process. And then once they get nominated, I submit a form, they submit all their contributions. And from that point, it's up to Microsoft to review them, determine if they think they meet the standards for a new MVP in that product community. And yeah, then we wait and see. It's kind of a mysterious approval process. Honestly, we don't know exactly what the criteria is or how they evaluate, but I try to have the nominee collect enough contributions that we think they're a strong nominee. And it varies by product. Business Central is a little different than, say, Visual Studio or SQL Server or Windows. So it depends on the product team. But within the Business Central community, I think, Waldo and Eric Hogard and James Crowder, there are lots of nominees, or lots of MVPs. So we get to see what contributions those people do. So we have a pretty good feel for what it takes to become a new MVP in the Business Central world.
Oh, amazing. But are the MVPs now involved in the evaluation process because you have now become an MVP?
No, we are not. We can nominate someone, but once we submit that form and the nominee submits their contributions, that goes to Microsoft, and we don't know what happens after that point. It's up to Microsoft and the product team to review that candidate. The MVPs are not involved in that approval process.
Oh, that's amazing. I believe now Kenya is the next challenge. I think we should get one MVP from Kenya. I don't know if you have
fantastic.
one. I think I'll challenge our team that this is our challenge now. We need to get one. In the next few years, we need an MVP, a Kenyan MVP.
That would be great. And,
sure.
We'll have to see if there's an MVP in Kenya in a different product category. And perhaps we could chat with them, but certainly within the business applications realm, Microsoft Dynamics, Power Automate, Power Platform, Business Central, I think that would be a great challenge.
Yes, that will be a very great and good challenge to have a Kenyan MVP.
Yes.
Yeah, so, actually, so this is now to new people who have maybe never used Business Central or Microsoft 365 products, or the Power Platform, and they are just hearing about it. Maybe they have just used Office 365, that is for the Word, Excel, and they're interested in maybe using the products more. They want to know about Microsoft 365 and the Power Platform. Let's starting with Microsoft 365. What will you tell people about what is Microsoft 365 and what is it trying to solve? And if someone wants to maybe venture into one of those, what path should they follow? Yeah.
That is actually, I think that is actually a very difficult question. And to be honest, I think it's in part because Microsoft has rebranded the Microsoft 365, Microsoft Dynamics product line a few times. And I find it actually kind of challenging to understand what the entire product line is, because it is not just one product. It's over a dozen different products that they've branded under the Dynamics 365 brand umbrella. You have CRM, you have service, you have sales, you have support, right? You have finance and operations, the more expensive enterprise ERP product with slightly different focus. And so I can't really speak to the entire product category because it is so vast. So that's one lesson. When you go to the Microsoft Dynamics 365 product page and you look at all the actual names of the products, those are full products. And so you could spend your entire career on just one of those products. So the challenge will probably be for people who are new to Dynamics 365 is understanding all the options they have available. And I would kind of recommend maybe choosing one or two, because if you try to tackle the whole thing, that's 40 years of learning, literally. And so in my case, I chose Dynamics 365 Business Central, and that is just one product kind of buried at the bottom of the list under the Dynamics 365 umbrella. And so I'd say challenge one is choosing which product you want to learn about and perhaps focus on. And then from there, reaching out to the community, checking on blogs and Twitter and forum posts and documentation, and learning about that product. And that could be the CRM suite, sales and support and service. There are people who focus exclusively on that. And then there's Power Platform, like you mentioned, Power Automate, Power Apps. I mean, that alone is just an entire world of learning and technology. And then, of course, in the Business Central world, it's an entire ERP product that runs multi-million-dollar businesses. So you can focus on just the application. You don't have to be a programmer. So if you understand payables and receivables and financial reporting and accounting requirements and tax requirements for, say, Kenya alone, you can be an expert in the Kenyan compliance reporting realm of Business Central. That can literally make you an expert with the product. And then on the technical side, maybe you don't have background in accounting and, financial reporting. That's fine. If you're more technically oriented, you know how to do a little bit of programming. Business Central is a fantastic platform for software development. You can create customizations, web services, process automation, custom reports, all on the technical side of the Business Central platform. And you're familiar with the amazing capabilities of Business Central. I come from Dynamics GP. That was, it's an older product that they've tried to modernize it in several respects, but Business Central in many ways is kind of a fresh new technical platform with Visual Studio Code and Git and DevOps and the AL language with a lot of .NET support and Azure as the back end. It's a very, very powerful, really phenomenal platform to work with as a developer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's true. Yeah, the range of products is quite overwhelming. It's good. And I like the point that you have said about trying to narrow down a niche or a product that you specialize on, because just a product can make a career, just one of the products.
And it can not only fill decades of a career, but if you don't focus, I have this problem where I'm interested in 10 things, but if I don't focus, I'm going to be chasing 10 different things and I just won't gain the depth required to have expertise in one of those products. So don't worry that you're not an expert in all of those Dynamics 365 products. That's impossible in my opinion. So you can have a 20-year career in Business Central. Same with Microsoft CRM, sales and service. You can spend a decade in there easily and you will not be bored, trust me.
Oh, wow. So now the beginner will also ask, or not even a beginner, someone who is trying to switch careers, probably they'll be like, yeah, Steve, I've heard you, yes, but okay, I'll hear my friend telling me that, do you know that Power BI is the in thing to go? Do you know that now? Okay, yes. You're in Business Central, but no. Can you try using maybe, what is it called? This Xamarin. Yep. You have not used Xamarin to develop web app, the mobile app. So you're just here on Business Central. No, you should try and diversify. So should someone try and just be a jack of all trades to start with and then see where they fit, or should they look at maybe what they want to solve and then look at the platform that solves that problem and build on top of it?
That's an excellent question. I'd say there are a couple answers. As you know, in technology, there's always the next latest and greatest thing. It's like, clothing fashion. There's the new spring line. There's the new fall line. And just realize there will always be advocates saying, oh, you have to try this great new tool. Well, I understand the desire to look into those things, but you really do have to focus. Otherwise, you'll be chasing all these new tools and technologies every 6 months. So, there's a new version of Windows, and even Business Central, every 6 months, there's a new release with all sorts of new features. You will be so busy just trying to keep up with that you actually have to be careful not to chase the next latest and greatest thing. So that's one perspective. But on the other perspective, to your point, there is great value in knowing about some of these surrounding and related technologies, because when you're working with Business Central, you may have a customer who says, well, I'd like to integrate data from this e-commerce shopping platform, WooCommerce, right? And I want to get that into Business Central. Well, it turns out that Power Automate has pre-built connectors for many of these systems. And even if you don't use it as a production solution, if you know just a little bit about Power Automate, you could prototype a solution for the customer in a few hours. So there's tremendous value in knowing just a little bit about these other tools. It's like, I'm familiar with this. Let me spend an hour working on this and let me show you a prototype and see if this might work for us. So it's a trade-off, right? So I try to dabble a little bit, get a feel. It's like, oh, what is this? Okay, maybe I'll use that later, but I don't try to become an expert because that could take years, right? So it is a trade-off.
Yeah, sure.
I want to focus, but there is value in trying to understand some of these new tools and technologies.
Oh, yeah. Sure. Yeah, that's amazing. At least to have maybe a small feeling of maybe what they offer, so that you may not end up spending a lot of trying to do something small, yet the product line offers it as part of the solution. So how do these, since there are still many and most of them have been integrated together, like can you explain maybe the integration of these products, like how they really blend well? You have Business Central integrating with Power BI, with Teams, and all that. Yeah.
So how do they integrate?
Yes.
Excuse me. Well,
Sorry
I think
for that.
one of the key aspects in the case of Business Central is that it offers the ability for external applications to connect. So through web services and web API and web hooks. And really, I mean, technologically with software, that's really the gateway to interacting with other applications, right? I mean, years ago, we had to deal with CSV files and FTP sites and transferring files back and forth. But now web services, web APIs have really opened up the ability to connect with those other applications. So Power Platform, for instance, right? And Power Automate, you can create a Power App that just connects to Business Central, a Power Automate flow that connects to Business Central. Power BI has some built-in connectors that allow it to connect to the BC web services and web APIs. So out of the box, Business Central has all of these connections, and it's saying, hey, our data is available, authenticate, and you can have access to it and work with Business Central very closely. And then you can even automate in some respects through a little bit of Business Central customization. So I think the API is really the gateway to introducing people how to connect to these other systems. It's very, very powerful.
Yeah. Oh, nice. So actually now for the Kenyan market, we have two different types of people. The ones who are tech savvy, they'll be like really open to going cloud ready. They'll be like, wow, automatically they want to host in the cloud, use the SaaS version of Business Central. But we still have another group who like still to be on premise. So could you highlight maybe what's the advantages of either being cloud or on premise, and the ones who are sticking to on premise, what are they losing out on by just remaining on prem? Yeah.
Great question. And this is a challenge, not just for Kenya. This is a challenge for everyone in the world, right? Especially those who have invested tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars in their on-prem solutions, right?
Yeah.
That's what they know. And I get it. I came from that world, and it's when you're giving up your server and the control of your data and the ability to write a query on your local database, that's a very strange feeling. But I think they're just at a high level, there are some obvious benefits to moving to a SaaS environment. Number one, backups. I mean, I don't know about you, but I will regularly speak with customers who don't know if they have a proper backup of all of their data. Maybe they do, maybe they think they do. When's the last time they actually had to do a restore of production data? right? It happens all the time. Hard drives fail, servers fail, there's a building fire, who knows, right? Ransomware, I'll get onto that. That's an entirely different category of risk. So I think that the cloud offers a level of reliability and I guess disaster recovery, contingency planning around your data that is really, really difficult to attain on an on-prem, especially for the small and medium business market, right? Most small and medium businesses don't have the resources to hire the very expensive IT administrators, a backup administrator, database administrator, a full-time security analyst, right? Who very, very few companies have the funds to do that in the small and medium business. And so by hosting this information in the SaaS world on the Microsoft Azure platform, we're paying for Microsoft to do that. We're getting the capabilities of Microsoft, their security monitoring, their backup administrators. So I think that's an obvious benefit. But there are still customers who really do need the on-prem capabilities. A friend of mine, Shannon Mullins, also a Business Central MVP, she has a customer that does 24-hour manufacturing, and they cannot tolerate any downtime. And so even if Microsoft does an automatic update in the cloud, that's actually a potentially bad thing for them. They do not want automatic updates. They do not want 2 minutes of downtime due to those updates that can interrupt their manufacturing processes. So they are taking that cost and that burden on themselves to maintain their on-premises infrastructure. And so, you know, some companies can afford to do that, others can't. And for them, that makes sense. Other cases, there may not be reliable internet. So there are mining operations, oil drilling operations, things that are very geographically based. And I worked with a company, they had mining operations in remote Canadian areas, right? And they didn't have reliable internet. So they had to function with an on-prem system locally in that site. And then when they got internet, you know, once a day, they had to transmit their updates back to their corporate office. So those are challenges that companies have, you know, no matter what technologies are available, they're actually still pushing the boundaries of the geography and internet and technologies that we have available. So pros and cons, it really depends on your business. I'm going to guess that for a majority of us that are in cities with decent internet, that the SaaS model is really appealing. And what does Business Central cost? Something like $70 at least in the US, per month per user. It's really hard to compete with that with an on-premises solution at that price with the capabilities we're getting for Business Central and other Dynamics 365 SaaS products.
Wow. Yeah. True. Well answered. And you highlighted something on data security. Maybe there are others who are adamant to go on cloud. They're like, I'm giving out my data to someone. What can you tell about that? Maybe the data security.
Yes. So if anyone follows me on Twitter, they'll know I'm a bit of a security nerd. I am not an expert. I'm not a cybersecurity super professional or anything like that. I'm very much just kind of an armchair civilian trying to observe this crazy war of cybersecurity that's going on. And the more you learn about cybersecurity risks and ransomware gangs that are operating internationally, the more you'll realize just how real the risk is and how vulnerable you are if you try to secure your organization yourself. And unless you consult with some cybersecurity experts who do this on a day-to-day basis to understand your risk, I'd say you're at risk, just right. So it is amazing that one email, one attachment, one fake phishing site that tricks an employee to enter their password, whether that's a local network password, an Office 365 password, a SharePoint password, you name it, their banking password, that puts your entire organization at risk. And it's not the employee's fault. These phishing scams are so good. there are entire platforms, open source platforms that anyone could download that will simulate your corporation, a giveaway site, a free corporate logo water bottle, all these things designed to trick users into giving up their password. And once that happens, no matter what you did, no matter how good your security is, your organization could be vulnerable. And one bug in one Microsoft product, Windows, Office, whatever, can expose your organization to risk. And so in that regard, it's so expensive for small and medium size organizations to secure your entire company that to outsource things to Microsoft really starts to make sense to leverage their security, their expertise, their data centers, and their global Azure security platform. So the more I learn, the more I realize I can't possibly secure my company myself.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, maybe people, when they see the server is here, they are like, oh, my data is just here. But when it's on the cloud, they're like, I can't even see it.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe for the ones who are like, hey, but at least when they get maybe the understanding of maybe what Microsoft is trying to offer in terms of security, in terms of high availability of the service, in terms of the backups, and just holistically what they can be able to gain, I believe it's really a good help or something that people should really adopt and move into. Yeah.
Yes. And
so have you done any yeah.
Go ahead.
You can proceed
Oh,
before I
anyone who has had to
fast.
host a Microsoft Exchange server in their company. I don't know about you, but I once had to support an Exchange server. I was very happy to get rid of that. It's the last thing I want to host, right? And who wants to maintain an Active Directory server? I mean, really, is that the thing that you want to spend your time on in your company, spending money on? I don't think so. It's something that it's just not offering competitive advantage to your business. So I would rather outsource email, outsource Active Directory, outsource the basic administrative burdens, outsource backups. I don't want to do backups. You don't want to do backups. We don't want to have to maintain them, make sure they're good. It's the last thing we want. So if we can outsource those as part of a Dynamics 365 subscription, yes, it is a monthly fee, but what is the cost of doing that? And what is the cost of doing that poorly, such that when you need that backup or when your Exchange server goes down, so I'd rather outsource those things, and I'm happy to give those up in order to get the peace of mind that they're being done better so that I can focus on more important things for my business, my customers, and things that are more valuable to organizations.
Yeah, sure. Very true. To the outsourcing, having that shift in mindset in terms of outsourcing, I believe even, yes, it's not Azure, but Netflix, they host their servers in AWS. So you can imagine such a big brand, they don't even have, they don't host servers. They use AWS. So like they've already known, like, we don't want to handle this part of backups, network administration, and all that. Our focus is just to make sure that you watch your movie. And yeah, that's the way to go, I believe.
Good point.
Have you done any, since you are on SaaS, have you done any on-prem installation or hosting?
I've not done it with Business Central, but I have worked with Dynamics GP for, 2004, I believe. So for 18 years, I worked with Microsoft Dynamics GP, which is an on-prem ERP package using Microsoft SQL Server, desktop installs or terminal server installs. So I still support hundreds of customers in the Dynamics GP world through software that I sell and support. And so I regularly see the challenges. Things are misconfigured. They don't know which server something is installed on. We're not sure if they have a good backup. I've had several customers who've had ransomware, and they've had to reinstall all of their infrastructure. So I see the good. We have everything is accessible on-prem, but I also see the bad, lost backups, ransomware, server problems, infrastructure problems. So yeah, I have lots of experience on-prem.
Oh, wow. So you have, okay, yes, you still support it, the Dynamics GP?
Yes,
Till now?
I do. I support, I think, over 600 customers who use software that I've sold over the last 13 years. And so we have hundreds of customers. So that's kind of my day job. And my weekends and evening job is Business Central, so to speak. So, yep, I'm in both worlds right now.
Oh, in both worlds, but you're transitioning into Business Central full throttle, or?
Yep.
Wow, wow. How is that? How is Dynamics GP? Does it have intelligence while you're coding, or you're just there like, okay, I've not used Dynamics GP. How is it? Is it a challenging environment to work on? And how are the support challenges there?
Dynamics GP is a great product. I mean, it's been around for decades, and it was even available back in MS-DOS. So back in the DOS character-based world, there was it was called Great Plains at the time. And so it has evolved. They even had a Mac version at one point, but it has evolved for decades. So it is so mature for the US market. It works flawlessly generally. So the base product works so well for the US market that it's really hard for anyone who's using it now, who's invested in it, to justify moving because it's working great for them. So in that respect, it's very easy to support. It works well. Everyone knows the inside and out, and it has great functionality. But it is on-prem, so customers have to upgrade, right? So every 6 months, every year, they have to do an upgrade. They have to update the software. They have to upgrade SQL Server. They have to potentially upgrade their ISV solutions. So that's a several $1,000 project that they're having to do with every upgrade. Whereas with Business Central, as we know, Business Central SaaS, I just get an email one morning that says, oh, you've been upgraded. And I was asleep at 3 a.m. So, I think there's a lot of appeal for, say, Business Central, but for a customer who's invested a couple $100,000 in Dynamics GP, I think it's still a great product and it will just run flawlessly for years.
Ah, amazing, amazing. Yeah. I've not used it. Maybe probably we'll schedule another call so that you can give me a short demo and be able to get look and feel of that product.
Well, I think from Microsoft's perspective, Business Central is the future. That's where they want everyone to move, right? But reality is customers are using existing products. So
exactly, the reality is, there's some customers who will be like, this system is stable, man. I won't go to that cloud that you're talking about. Yes, sometime I will come, but not yet. Not yet. Because they're trying to imagine maybe the kinds of customizations that they have been doing. If it's 2004 up to date, they have built modules and processes on top of each other, and probably some changes were done directly to the base application at that time. So all kinds of coding standards. So
Exactly. And many ISV solutions, third-party solutions, so they may be using a specific third-party solution in the United States for their business, their manufacturing or distribution. And if that's not available in Business Central yet, then they won't even consider an alternative.
We are not going to this place yet. They'll be like that. So this model of Business Central, sometimes people who are coming into it, the understanding of this is an application that it has a base application, and the model of customizing it is extending it, or probably you need to maybe understand the base application first, what it's doing, so that you may not repeat something that is already being provided by the base application and adding an extension that is reinventing the wheel per se. Like you're trying to reinvent the wheel of whatever is already there. So what's the best way to approach building applications on top of base applications?
I'm learning that process right now. So I'm, 2 to 3 years into learning Business Central. And
Yeah.
so at this point, I still rely upon the colleagues and consultants I work with. And they're even having to figure some of this stuff out because they'll ask a question about a particular portion of Business Central functionality. And some people just are like, I've never tried that, right? And every
Wow.
customer is a little unique. So they want to do things certain way. And we're still trying to figure out, can Business Central do it in that way? Sometimes it can. We just need to figure out what functionality exists. But other times, like we do realize that a customization or an extension or an app is required. And so we're careful about when we do that. We try to use the
Yeah.
Business Central functionality whenever possible. And when it can't meet the customer's needs, we'll do a extension or a customization. So it's hard to know. I'm still learning. So
Yeah. Because so the question is, will I build this functionality just from scratch? And yes, of course, I'll integrate, but should I focus on building it completely from scratch, or should I look for something in Business Central that is close to what I'm having, and then try and, yes, add a few things there, but still use the same functionality that is in this Business Central that is provided for. Yeah, I think that's also
from the GP world, that is very much the model. Number one is there an ISV solution that can do what I want? Can I just go buy this third-party product? So that's the preference from the US Dynamics GP model that we've had for years. I think in the Dynamics NAV world, historically, customizations and full-blown custom applications were more common. But most of our, say, Dynamics GP customers, if they migrate, they'll ask, what ISV products do I need? They won't ask, how can I customize this system? So it's a slightly different mindset. And so we're kind of figuring that out. But generally, ISV solution first. Can we leverage Business Central functionality, maybe with some small tweaks second? And then last resort, I guess, for us is a custom application. And if someone has it on AppSource, fantastic. Otherwise, customers may need to develop it from scratch.
Oh, wow. So they'll be like, do we have an ISV that provides this solution? If not, then they develop from scratch. What if the ISV that solution that you are getting doesn't have everything? And maybe the client wants that extra text box.
Yes,
to be added.
and it's a challenge, but it's their choice. Do they want to spend, say, $1,000 on the ISV solution, or $5,000 to $10,000 creating their own, right? Or more, right? It could be very expensive to develop a full-blown application. So once they see the price, they're like, oh, yeah, maybe we can compromise with that ISV solution that has 90% of what we need. And maybe that ISV will help us extend their product to meet our needs fully, right?
Right. And again, still on the base application model, how are customers responding to maybe the way the application works, that it may require them to change their business process, the way they work? Like this, you might need to change maybe some part of how you work to enable this application work, the workflow to flow seamlessly for you to get the most benefit out of it. Because maybe they have their internal systems, the way they approach working, and they're like, oh, we go from here, then here, and then here, and this is how we maybe complete it. How do you approach maybe trying to make them understand the best process? Do you try to customize to reach to what they do, or you try to explain to them they can do this to be able to get to this same solution? Or how do you maybe go about that?
It varies based on the customer and the specific process. Sometimes a customer may be doing something very inefficiently. And after you look into that, you can say, well, instead of 10 steps, can you just use these 3 steps in Business Central and you'll save a lot of time? And if they see the benefit, it's like, oh, yeah, we can do it differently, but it looks like it saves us time and it accomplishes the same goal. Other times, the process in Business Central may not be more efficient or better. That customer may have a very efficient process from years of doing that, right? And so they say, well, our process is actually better than what you're offering with Business Central. That actually happens fairly regularly. Business Central may not have all the functionality for that specific process to be optimized. So that's a challenge. And one of the most challenging of all is I do this in QuickBooks. It takes me 2 steps.
Exactly.
But in Business Central, it takes me 10 steps and it's much more complex. I thought this expensive, fancy system was better, but I like QuickBooks better. And that, I think, is the hardest one because QuickBooks is such a simple, efficient, inexpensive product, but it does it at the expense of no auditing, no posting, no data integrity, right? So you're giving up a lot for that simplicity. So that's the worst one. I do this in QuickBooks. Why is it so hard in Business Central? And unfortunately, every system is different. Every business is different. To the extent possible, if we can use Business Central functionality, that's great. But in some cases, that would just be very time consuming, or it doesn't quite work the way the customer needs. And we need to look into an extension, which is nice in Business Central because it is not modifying the base app, right? Business Central SaaS, we just write an extension to add on top of Business Central to enhance it.
Yeah. Okay, so the different ones, have you had the ones that are very rigid? They'll be like, no. This ain't the solution. Yes, I know you're telling me this is what I'm gaining, but no. You got to give me a simpler solution.
Yeah, it happens. But I'd say the general consensus is, as a consultant, if the customer says, when I move to Business Central, everything in Business Central must be exactly the same as what I did on my old system, I generally feel that is probably a missed opportunity. So Business Central works differently. It's SaaS. And so if you're trying to replicate your old on-prem system that's 30 years old in Business Central, by definition, you're not taking advantage of what Business Central can offer, the efficiencies, some of the new technologies. It's web-based, right? It has a mobile app. It has APIs. So you wouldn't necessarily want to replicate all your CSV exports and imports. You'd use web APIs. And maybe Power Automate can solve some problems for you, right? And there may be new ISV solutions that exist to solve those problems, so you don't have to replicate your on-prem functionality. So I'd say that if a customer is very rigid in wanting to do exactly what they've always done for the last 30 years, they're really missing out on maybe some new ways of doing things more efficiently in Business Central with new tools. So that would be my strong recommendation.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah. Will you refuse a client or a customer who is a bit rigid from the onset?
Well, and so that's a tough question. If you have a strong business and that customer is not able to or willing to take advantage of the new opportunities, then, I mean, you have to ask yourself as a consultant or as a consulting firm, at the end of the day, if we deliver exactly what this customer wants, will they be happy? Will we be proud of what we've done? And if another firm comes in and looks at what we've done, will they think we were negligent, like that we did not transition this customer to new technologies, new tools, new ways of doing things? So, if a customer really wants to do something that I think will get me in trouble in 6 months, will be a support problem in 6 months, sometimes I may have to decline. It's like, I can't do that because I know what's going to happen in 6 months or 12 months. So I don't want a highly customized environment that's going to be really difficult to upgrade continuously, right? So there's ongoing costs to that. So sometimes if it's really bad, yes, sometimes you do have to decline. Say, I'm not a good fit because I want to be able to support you in 2 years and 3 years and 5 years and know that you have a good solution. And I'm sure someone else will step in and take care of that customer, but at what cost?
Sure. Yeah, that's a tough call to take, and it also brings another question: is the customer always right, or as technology enthusiasts, what should we be doing? Should we be, yes, this is the way we see right, huh? But some customers tend to be like a bit, they would like to be right. Are they always right at times, or should we also be like, oh, guy, I'm the technology guy here, so you should listen to me?
And that's a conversation, right, that happens a lot. So sometimes customers want a solution. And so they're like, I don't want to have to re-enter this data. I don't want to have to wait an hour for this to process, whatever that is. Or I want to process my transactions more efficiently. And then it's up to us as the consultant or advisor. It's like, okay, I understand your concern and your end goal. How can we best achieve it? So for me, it's not about it should be done this way or that way. It's like, well, maybe this solution is a better fit for this customer, or maybe it's this solution. And so some developers may say it must be done in AL. Other developers will say, well, I don't like AL. It must be done in Power Automate. I try to be more agnostic, right? So like it's the customer who's going to have to support this solution. So maybe Power Automate is a better fit for them because they can support a Power Automate flow, whereas they would not be able to support an AL custom solution. So maybe they give up some functionality with Power Automate, but that might be a better long-term fit for them. So I look at the customer, see what they're trying to ultimately achieve, and then work with them to see what might be the best fit. Now, if a customer is dictating very specific technical requirements, but they're asking me to develop and support the solution, that's a little unusual. I don't run into that as much. Most customers are asking for advice. They say, hey, this is what we want to achieve. What do you recommend we do to achieve that? And I'll offer them some choices. I say, hey, here's option A, here's the pros and cons, here's option B, here's the pros and cons. I kind of think B might be a better fit for you, but you tell me. And so I like to work together with customers, and it's not often that I have customers with very strict technical mandates for me.
Sure. Yeah. That's amazing. That's amazing. So what's your approach to training as we wind up?
So training takes time. And so I think employees, end users, developers, you try to have conversations, you try to plan for it, you try to budget for it. You have good trainers. I don't typically do end user training on the functional side. I'll do some technical training. And I think people learn differently. So that's another challenge of training. Some people like videos. Some people like written documentation. Some people like a hands-on lab or a literal walkthrough of the steps they're going to perform. And so if I'm providing training to a customer, I'll try to figure out what's going to work for this scenario and how can they stay current with this. Oftentimes, they'll do something once and they won't have to do it again for 6 months. So that's a challenge, right? So we'll need to leave documentation so they can refer to that every 6 months. But I'd say training takes time. So I'd say give yourself plenty of time, have your end users be patient and give them time. And eventually they'll learn it. It may, be a rough transition like me from Dynamics GP to Business Central. Wow, everything was so different that it's taken me years to get comfortable with Business Central. So I'd say be patient with yourself and you'll learn eventually. Plenty of resources available.
In the fast moving economy, they're like, we want to get started very fast. We need to keep moving. You're like, oh, how will you balance that? Now you'll be a bit patient, or at the same time, give them maybe the basics to understand, like maybe the basics that will enable them at least to do the minimum needed to get their work moving. I believe so.
You do YouTube videos on Business Central development. And so if I come to you and say, hey, I've never done anything in Business Central, teach me everything I need to know. And can you do that in 8 hours?
Yes.
8 hours,
everything
though.
I need to know to get started. It depends on the scope.
Right. And so, there is so much to learn, right? I can watch one of your videos and that may take me hours to really understand. So it's an entire world of knowledge. So I'd say I often get that request, hey, can you just show me everything I need to do Business Central development? It's like, well, I have 14 hours of videos on my YouTube channel starting from scratch with Business Central development, 14 hours. And that's literally just scratching the surface, right? That's Docker and VS Code and the AL language and creating an extension. That doesn't even get into how do you design an extension or an app source app or, do more complex coding. So I think when people see that, they realize, oh, there's a lot of stuff here. And we have tons of free resources, but it requires a significant investment of time on their part because ultimately we're just training our brain. And just like I can't run a marathon in a week, I can't learn Business Central in a week. It takes time.
Exactly. Yeah, sure. At least you can print hello world.
Yes, hello world. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So what is your day in life like as a Dynamics GP and Business Central consultant?
Well, I generally have a bunch of emails and support tickets, and so that usually fills my day actually. So responding to emails, supporting customers who use the software that I sell, doing support tickets and support calls. Every day I'm on calls with people, mostly all over the United States, supporting them, answering their questions, solving issues. And then I try to work on Business Central, both learning projects, some custom APIs or custom page extensions. I'll do a live stream occasionally. And then we work on our Business Central customers. We're developing a Business Central app source app. So I work with my developer to have calls to, okay, how do we add this feature? How do we enhance our licensing? How do we work on our Business Central back-end systems to support our Business Central customers? So really a juggling act, jumping from one task to another, but really just constantly talking to people, communicating with people, having calls. That's pretty much my day.
Wow. Yeah, and I see you do long episodes on I Need a Coffee. How did that name come about? And yeah, where did you get the time after all those emails? There is your coffee.
I tried to do YouTube videos, and the problem I found is that I wanted them to be perfect. I wanted to cut out when I misspoke. I wanted to cut out when I coughed or sneezed or whatever. And I wanted the video to look good. So I found I was recording for 4 hours to try and get it right. And then I was editing for 4 hours. And the end result was a 10-minute video. And so I realized 8 hours of effort for a 10-minute video that 20 people may watch, that's not sustainable. And so eventually I found a video setup that would work, that I could sit at my desk, turn it on, hit a few buttons, and just start talking. And that's a very different thing. I make mistakes. Demos don't work. I have to work through it live. But at the end of the day, it's a very real situation. Hey, here's what I'm going to talk about. Let's try to solve the problem, or let's discuss this. And it doesn't have to be refined. It doesn't have to be edited or perfect. I will, have a
Yeah.
package delivery at my door interrupting me, but it just becomes much easier to share the content without worrying about the editing and having anything perfect. And the I need coffee was literally because I was trying to do it at 7:30 in the morning before the family and the kids woke up and when things were quiet,
Oh,
because that was an actual problem. Once my family woke up, everyone's banging and slamming doors and doing dishes, so it was really hard to record.
yeah.
So 7:30 in the morning, I needed coffee. So that's literally what
Nice.
popped out of my brain.
Nice, nice. Very creative. And I like the idea of just letting it flow with the errors, and people will get a feeling of how the learning curve is, because at times when you do too much editing, the the person who is trying to learn, the developer, will be like, hey, no, no, I'm not like that guy. This ain't for me. They'll be like, hey, this is so perfect, because ideally in a natural environment, most of the time you'll just fall into errors, unexpected problems will rise up. You'll find an update was installed in your machine. It's not in the machine that was recorded, and all those challenges that you may face. Yeah.
Yes, and I've had a problem, and I posted on Twitter, and the response is, "Oh, it's easy. You just do ABC." Well, I did ABC. I did exactly what they said, but it didn't work for me. So I think
Yeah.
part of the live stream is sharing the errors, the mistakes, the things that don't work, because that's my reality. When I try to
Yeah.
follow that scripted demo and it doesn't work, I don't know how to solve the problem. And much of what I do every single day is solving problems, whether for myself or customers. So when things go perfectly smoothly, I'm very suspicious. And as you know, in
Yeah.
technology, like
Exactly.
rarely things go perfectly. You run into things that are
Yeah.
unexpected. And so I like to
Yeah.
stop and show all those problems and errors and unexpected issues, because I have had people say, "Oh my gosh, thank you. I've had the exact same error and didn't know how to solve it." So I'm happy to
Yeah.
share
Yeah.
those mistakes on air.
That's amazing. So, as we wind up, probably I'd like to ask, what advice would you give to the Dynamics 365 Kenyan team, or what's your message to them?
I think this is a great community, and whether you're in United States or Europe or Kenya or somewhere else, I think reach out to the community, participate in the community. In the case of Business Central, we have a great Twitter community. So we're all online at all hours as the globe rotates. So you can post a question and get a response from someone across the world in 15 minutes. There are great blog posts, great videos, great training documentation. All the resources for Business Central, at least, are free. You can do everything you need. As long as you have a computer and an internet connection, you can get started for free. There's online training, tons of videos and blog posts of people contributing for free. So I say, jump in, find a product that you're interested in, and you can learn from scratch. Or if you're familiar with the product, you can level up your knowledge or skill up your knowledge, as Doug likes to say, right? And so jump in,
Yeah.
participate, reach out, and we'd be happy to help.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you for that. Where can we reach you? How can we get to you? So for the people who would like to get to you directly, maybe via Twitter, via your blog, they would like to see your videos. Can you
Sure.
give us the handles? Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm very active on Twitter, so I'm just Steve Endow, one word on Twitter. And I've actually created a list of all of my links to my blog, videos, everything. And that's links.steveendow.com. So you just go to that page, and I've listed everything out, how to reach me, and all the resources I've posted.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. Amazing. Yeah. Thank you for accepting to grace our occasion. And unless you have any question, I believe that's it for me.
Well, thank you very much for the invite. And Excuse me. Thank
Sorry.
We're live, right? This is a recording.
I should be there. Just do something like this. Yeah.
So thank you for the invite to speak to everyone here, and thank you very much for organizing the Kenya user group and meetup meeting. I think it's fantastic that, you know, we can reach out literally across the globe and interact with each other. And thank you for bringing people together in person and virtually in your geography to let people know that there are resources available and that they are welcome to participate and interact with all of us.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Steve. And
Great.
I hope to talk to you more and more often. And I believe the Kenyan team will really love this recording that we have done with you today.
Thank you very much.